Thanks, Dave. Hi, everyone. Good morning or good evening to some of you. So I'll start by introducing myself. My name is Adal. I work as a product operations engineer at Datree. I started my path as a C++ developer. I worked at a security company for about 3.5 years. And for the past 5 months, I've been working at Datree, doing product operations. And one of the main things that I do in this context is I work on integrating Datree and the Datree CLI into some tools and platforms in the world of Kubernetes. Some of these are CI platforms, and one of them is Drone, which is what we'll be talking about today and what we'll demonstrate today. So before we get into the plugin, let's talk a bit about Datree. So what is Datree? So Datree is a centralized policy management and policy enforcement solution for Kubernetes. It helps users detect and prevent misconfigurations in their manifest files. And so on the one hand, we have the DevOps, who knows what the best practices for working with Kubernetes are in their organization. And on the other hand, we have the developers who need to follow these guidelines and these best practices. And Datree sits right in the middle, and it aids both of them in making sure that the cluster remains stable and that no misconfigurations are introduced and entered into production. So Datree was built with a shift left mindset, meaning that we want to catch these errors and misconfigurations as early as possible in our development cycle. So either during development itself while we're coding, or as part of our CI before our code is integrated. So there are two main components in Datree. One is the CLI. And the CLI is a lightweight tool used to scan a YAML file or multiple files and check them for policy violations or misconfigurations that are violating the policy that we have configured. So if any misconfigurations are found, the Datree CLI will provide us an output that shows which rules were violated, which rules failed, and more importantly, how to fix them. So Datree comes with over 50 built-in rules that we can use that cover best practices in various fields or various categories within Kubernetes. So we have rules for best practices when working with containers, when working with workloads. We have some security rules and much more. And in addition to that, we have some built-in policies. And policies are groups of rules under a certain context or platform. For instance, Argo CD, we have a policy built for that. Now, the second component of Datree is the dashboard. So in the dashboard, this is where we manage and configure our policy. So if you can see from the screenshot here, this is the main page of the dashboard, our policies page. And right away, we can see a list of the rules that we have available. Now, I'll say now that when you install Datree, it comes with a default policy that has some built-in rules already activated within that policy. Not all of the rules are on by default. Some of them are, some of them aren't. And the nice thing about this centralized management is that you can configure your policies any way you'd like. So you can enable and disable rules. You can create new policies that contain different rules. And this is a very helpful centralized way to control your policies from anywhere. So you can do all of this from the UI, toggling on and off, as we can see here. But also, you can do this via code. So Datree offers a policies code mode. You would turn that on via your dashboard, and then you can do everything we just said just via code. You can add rules to your policies, create new policies. And once you're done doing that, using the CLI, you can publish your policies YAML file with your new configured policy, and it will sync with your account and your dashboard. And from there, you can just run and test your policies from anywhere. The second page in our dashboard is our history page. And this is just a very helpful way to see the history of your policy checks. So we have all of our policy executions nice and centralized here. We can see which runs failed, which runs succeeded, and within each one, which rules failed, along with some nice metadata about what Kubernetes schema version we used and some info about the machine that it was run on. Now, getting started with Datree is very simple. So installing it is just a matter of a one-line installation. You would just copy this and run it in your terminal. This will download and install Datree for you. Once you do that, you're good to go with testing. So you can use the CLI directly on a YAML file. This is what we see in the bottom example. So to use Datree during development, we can run just a simple Datree test, give it a path to a file or a path to a directory containing multiple files. And this will scan our files and test them using our default policy. And this is done during development. So just directly on the YAML file before any code is integrated. Now, additionally, you can use our kubectl plugin if you want to test your files in production. So this is actually to test your resources already in your cluster. So the way that this plugin works is that when you run it, you specify a namespace, and the plugin will extract all resources from that namespace and run a Datree test against them. So this is a great way to see how your cluster is doing stability-wise, to see if there are any misconfigurations in there that you missed, or maybe some things that you want to change. And the next logical step is to integrate Datree into your CI, which is the best way to make sure that no new violations are introduced into your repositories and that your code is clean and stable. So now that we know a bit about what Datree is, let's see it in action. So I already have Datree installed on my machine, so I can just proceed to running it. Now, when you install Datree, it comes with a demo file, which is what I'm going to test right now. This demo file is already has some errors in it, and we can use it to see what the output looks like and understand what the CLI actually provides us. So let's go ahead and do that. Great, let's see what we get. So after running a Datree test on this file, we can see that it goes through several stages. The first is a YAML validation. This checks that it's a valid YAML file. The second is checks that it's a valid Kubernetes schema file. And the third step is the policy check itself. So this is actually the step that is testing the rules that we have configured in our account, in our dashboard, against the file that we want to test. So as we can see here, we have 4 violations, so 4 rules are failing. And for each one, we can see how many occurrences of this error we found in the file. We can see what the type of resource is that we're testing. In this case, they're all deployment because we're just testing one file and it's a deployment file. And we can see a nice little message that tells us how to fix this error. So if we take a look at this example in the second violation, we can see that it failed because in our deployment, we configured a container, but we did not add a liveness probe to it. So it is telling us that it's missing this object, this property, and adding it would resolve this error. So scrolling further down, we have a nice little summary of all the rules that failed, the number of rules that failed, the number of rules that passed. And another important thing to note here is the schema version that is used. So Kubernetes has many versions. The default one that is used in Datree is 1.19, but this is, of course, you can change this very easily from your dashboard. So now that we saw what a Datree test looks like, let's see how to integrate this into Drone. So this is our Drone plugin repo. And after this meetup, I invite you all to check it out for yourselves, take a look, try it out for yourselves, star it, of course, and let us know if you find any issues or if you have any questions, feel free to contact us. So what this plugin actually does is it allows you to run the Datree CLI just very easily and seamlessly as part of your drone pipeline. And it comes also with support for Helm and Customize, which are two templating tools that are very common when working with Kubernetes. Now, to use this, we first have a small setup we need to do, and that's regarding the token. Now, the token in Datree is actually the way that the CLI identifies the dashboard or your account. It's actually the way that they synchronize with one another. So we first need to acquire our token and set it in our drone dashboard. This is done very simply by going to our dashboard, clicking our account, going to settings, and under token management, we can see that we have our default token. So after you register for Datree and create an account, then you would get your token. So I would copy this, go into my drone dashboard, and within the repo that I'm working with, I would go into that repo, into settings, secrets, and very simply just create a new secret here and add it. So we'd call it the Datree token, and the value for this key will be my token. Once we do that, we're good to go, and we can actually just start using Datree in our pipeline. So let's see what this plugin can do. So here are all the settings that you can use. Now, only the first two are required. So this is the minimal requirement for using this plugin. So the first one is the token that we just talked about. And the second one is, of course, the path. We want to tell our plugin which test or which file we want to test. And other than that, we have our CLI arguments. Now, the Datree CLI has multiple CLI arguments that allow you to alter its behavior according to your needs. So let's take a look at that. If we go into our docs, we can see a list of all of our available flags, all of the available arguments for the CLI. So for example, I'm going back to my dashboard for a second. If I go back to my policies page, you can see that I have more than one policy here. So the default one is the one I get with my account, but I also have another one called Argo, another one called NSA, and I can create many more. So when I run the CLI, I want to be able to tell the CLI which policy to use, so it knows which rules to evaluate. And we do that using the flag. So we have a flag for that, dash policy. So this is what we would use. And we would specify the name of the policy that we want to test. That's one example. Another one, if you recall the schema version we talked about before. So the default is 1.19, but if we want, we can use any schema version we desire, and we would set that using -- schema version or -s or shorthand. So there are others here, all altering the CLI's behavior in some way. And so to use those, we would add them to the CLI argument setting. And I'll show in a second how to do that. Now, the other four options we have here are related to Helm and Customize. So if I wanted, instead of testing a YAML file directly, if I wanted to test a Helm chart instead, then I would set this setting is Helm chart to true, and I can add under Helm arguments any argument related to Helm that I want. Same goes for Customize. So scrolling further down, we have some examples for pipelines. So one's for just working directly against a YAML file. We have an example for Helm and Customize as well. So let's see this in action. So if I go back to my dashboard, my drone dashboard, you can see that this is the repo that I'm working with, and the configuration file where I'm configuring my pipeline is .drone.yaml. So this is the said repo that we're working with, and we can see we have .drone.yaml here. If we take a look inside, we can see the pipeline that is configured. Now, a couple things to note. So first, we can see that this pipeline will run on every push and pull request. And we can also see that within the step of the policy check, the image being used is an image called drone Datree. This is a Docker image we created specifically for this plugin. So this is the one that should be used when using this plugin. And under settings, we can add all of the settings that we wish, just like we saw before. So right now, the minimal settings are provided. This will use the token from my drone dashboard, just like we saw. And the file that will be tested is example file.yaml, which is just a file sitting at the root of my repository. So to initiate a pipeline run, we need to push some code. For simplicity's sake, we will do it from here. And let's say I want to also add a CLI argument. So I can add, let's say we want to use a different schema version. So I would add a -s, and we'll use 1.22.0 instead of the default 119. So I will commit that. And now going back to my dashboard, I can see that the pipeline is indeed initiated and we have a run happening right now. So as with all pipelines, Drone automatically clones the code for us, which is great. And we see the second step is the Datree policy check. And it failed, which is what we expected would happen because, well, I know that in this file we have some misconfigurations. So let's see. So again, we can see that indeed example file YAML was scanned. Again, it is a valid YAML file and a valid Kubernetes schema. And the policy check failed, this time with 3 violations that were found. And again, we can see in the summary the number of rules that failed and the number of rules that passed and failed. And that's it. That's how you would use the plugin. Of course, again, you can configure this in many other ways regarding the arguments that you can use. So that's that. Thanks very much for watching. And I'm sending it back over to you, Dave.